Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the We're Not Stumped podcast. I'm your host, Mike Bolland, and today is headlines. Today's headlines, and it's going to be fun. This is for the week of September 16th, 2024. Today is September 19th, and I got a couple interesting things to talk about because two of the headlines I'm going to talk about, the last two, are more personal to me. One was an adventure I had last week that I want to pass along to you, and I think you should, if you can, support the same organization that I was able to support in any way you possibly can. And then lastly, something about this podcast that I want to pass along. Before I get going though, I want to thank everyone who has ordered, and if you're watching the YouTube version of this I'm Not Stumped sticker. I think I just said everything or told you earlier that the proceeds from those stickers just goes directly back to the show. They're $5. So get your stickers. If you can, $5 shipped to you. Go to we'renotstumped.com. And remember, there's no apostrophe in the URL. So it's W-E-R-E, notstumped.com. Right on the homepage, you can order an I'm Not Stumped sticker because, we're not stumped. Just because we have stumps doesn't mean we're stumped. We can still accomplish whatever we put our minds to. Excellent. So thank you for listening to that rant, but let's get into the headlines now. Headline number one comes to us from Burnaby now, which is, I'm not sure where they're located, to be honest with you. I believe they're in the UK. Could be wrong. This comes courtesy of Burnaby Now, barnabynow.com, and the reporter is Kyle Bowser. So I'll have the link in the description, like I said, I always do, but let me give you a quick synopsis of what the story is. Here's the headline. This 2-year-old Burnaby champ has raised nearly $400 for other amputees. Bodie was born without a right arm below the elbow and sought to help others like him. Awesome, bro, Bodie. This is awesome. And here's how the story goes. A sweet gesture that refreshes the soul. Bodie, a 2-year-old child amputee, recently set up a lemonade stand at his Burnaby home with his sister, Jaya, as part of a fundraiser to help kids without a limb, other kids without a limb. Bodie was born without a right arm below the elbow, War Amp said in an email to Burnaby Now. His neighborhood responded in kind to the Buy Donation initiative, sipping pink lemonade to a grand total of $381. And this goes to the War Amp's Child Amputee program, and they're out of Canada. I'll tell you a little bit about them now. The program helps children under 18 across Canada who are born without or have lost limbs due to an accident or medical issues. According to Champ, the money will provide financial aid to families of child amputees with artificial limbs, peer connections, and resources on living with amputation. Bodie is a member of Champ and is a shining example of what amputees helping other amputees is all about, and that's according to War Amps. They are out of Canada. Support them if you can. I'll have a link to them in the description as well. Bodie, great job. Keep it up. This is so cool to think that he set up a lemonade stand to raise money for other kids like him. And, I'm looking at his picture. He's very similar to me as far as his amputation. He was born just like me. It looks like he's not going to be stumped either. He's going to continue and have a successful life. Him and his sister are going to be very successful. So congratulations again, Bodie. So like I said in the introduction, it's not just going to be 3 headlines. The last 2 are very personal to me. So let me get to headline number 2. And it has to do with Camp No Limits. I said last week that I was going to spend some time. I spent 2 days with the organization. I couldn't do it all 3 days. They were out here Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'm an Arizona Cardinals season ticket holder. They actually won the game. They beat the Rams. They beat them pretty bad, so it was kind of fun watching that game. I couldn't get out there Sunday, but what I witnessed on Friday and Saturday was just fantastic. That is an organization that I feel we should all support. It was because here's the deal. I'm not the youngest guy in the world. These things weren't available to me when I was younger. A Camp No Limits that brings children with all limb differences together and to have a lot of fun and a lot of activities. And I just want to give a shout out to Alex, Mary, and Kelsey. They were the representatives that I got to speak to from Camp No Limits. All the volunteers, all the mentors, just fantastic. I mean, it was a crazy good event. It was held at Ability 360, which is a local organization here in Arizona. I've had Nick Pryor on from Ability 360 on this podcast. I'm going to have Chris Rodriguez. He's the CEO of that organization. We're going to tape that episode on October 15th. I'm really excited to have him on. I've been to Ability 360 to get the tour, but I actually got to live it a little bit. I did the rock wall. They have a huge rock wall. If you're on YouTube, I'm going to overlay this part with me on the rock wall. I passed by the rock wall and a representative from Hangar who happened to be helping and volunteering that day. Hey, Mike, you want to try the rock wall? And I was looking up going, hey, it's not really the one hand thing. It's more the age thing. At this point, I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm like, come on, Mike, give it a try. I'm glad I did. Because even at my age, I was able to get up that wall. And it's really neat to think about. And that's when you talk about amputations and living with limb loss, I've talked about this before. I think it's very important that we keep ourselves in shape however we can do that. And it really kind of, it was exemplified in my life by me being able to still go up that rock wall. Again, I didn't care if I had one hand. I would have done it at any point in my life. But pushing 60, I was kind of questioning whether I was going to be able to do it. But I was able to do it. I want to talk about Camp No Limits again. Their URL is nolimitsfoundation.org. Go check them out. It is, again, I just had a blast being there, getting to meet the families, getting to meet the other children with limb loss, getting to meet the mentors and the volunteers. It was just great. Matter of fact, I got some great news if you're in the Tennessee area or can travel to Tennessee. Their next event is September 27th through the 29th in Tennessee. And if you want more information about that particular event, again, go to nolimitsfoundation.org. One of the cool things, though, too, that I found while I was there was a company called Koala. And they make a soft prosthetic that kind of Velcros onto your arm. And I tried it on. And listen, I haven't used a prosthetic in 47 years, I think. Maybe it's been a long time. Let's face it, maybe close to 50 years. But I put this thing on and I was doing push-ups with it. And again, these are the things I talk about. Keep yourself in shape. Try to not get the overuse injuries by keeping yourself in shape and balance and staying in balance and things like that. So I'm going to overlay this part by showing me doing push-ups with this Koala device. That is totally cool. Totally cool. They can be found at Koala Community. I'm going to turn on my phone as we're speaking. Koala Community on Instagram. I'm following them. Matter of fact, they're going to be on the podcast within the next few weeks. We haven't got the schedule yet, but they are gracious enough to come on the podcast. It was great to meet them. They got really, and they have all these different devices that'll click in and out. Like the device that I used, it clicked out of the top. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll know exactly. I'm using my hands, I guess, as lack of a better term. Even though I don't have hands, I'm kind of using them to describe it. But they have interlocking devices that'll go in and out, where you can have pencil, a fork, something to help you lift weights. They have a lot of different apparatuses and things that'll click in and out that makes it very easy to use. And again, the soft shell of it was just so comfortable to me. It was totally a cool device. So check them out at Koala Community on Instagram and be on the lookout for having them on this podcast. One thing I do want to talk about too, I said that Hangar was out there also, and it was cool what they did. They brought something that I had never seen before. They brought a hook, a prosthetic, that people with two hands or can put on one of the hooks and try to see what it's like to use a hook. And I thought that was great. And there was this one camper who I think recently had an event where they were having to wear a hook, and she was with her family, a young girl, just an awesome person. And I was watching how she was doing some certain things. So I go, in my mind, I thought to myself, give me one of those prosthetics that are meant to go on a regular hand. I'm going to put it on my stump. and I'm going to see if I can do this out, because I wanted to show her what it was like for someone to really use a prosthetic. And like I said, I haven't used one in 47 years, but I was picking up little pretzel sticks, the little ones, and putting it on her plate. That's what we had. And I was able to do it. And I could see her eyes light up, and it meant a lot to me. That's the thing about Camp No Limits, what they do, and the mentor program, and what they're trying to accomplish is to show families and individuals with limb loss that there is a way. So again, go to nolimitsfoundation.org. Do what you can to support that foundation. If you happen to be in Tennessee, near Tennessee, you can travel to Tennessee later this month in September 27th through the 29th. That's when their next event's going to be. I'm sure they're putting their schedule together for next year. But I highly recommend Camp No Limits. Thank you, everyone, with that organization. Okay, headline number 3. Very personal. Very personal to me. This is the 75th episode of the We're Not Stumped podcast. Started this over 2 years ago. I want to thank 2 people, my first 2 guests, because without them being on this podcast that early, I don't know if I'd be here. Nicole Kelly and Jeff Solberg. Thank you so much for believing in me when I had nothing and being on this podcast. But over the last 2 years, I've met and interviewed the greatest people you'd ever meet. They've made my life better. Every one of the people that have been on this podcast has made my life better. And I just thank everyone for the support. I want to talk about me, though, a little. I don't usually do this on the podcast, but how did I get here? How did I get to 75 episodes? And I'll give you the abridged version. I worked for a company called Discount Tire for 30 years. And I started in the stores, like a lot of people do. And at the time that I started, most people did. But something about me with having one hand and limb loss, and I think everyone in the limb loss community will know this, I wasn't given a job instantly there. They weren't sure whether they wanted to hire me because I had one hand. And what I'll say to that is, don't take that as a negative. Take it as a positive that they gave me a chance. Because the one thing I wouldn't want to do is improperly install tires in somebody's vehicle and cause injury or harm to anyone. So it was a two-way street when we decided that I could do the job. I had to prove myself a little differently than someone with 2 hands, but I was able to prove myself. And I turned that into a 30-year career where I ran at various times. I ended up I re-educated myself, ended up working at corporate. I ran our e-business department. I was a lead designer for our website. Then I ran the e-business department for many years. I ran our digital marketing. I started our social media programs. And then when I left the company 2 years ago, I was running our customer experience business unit. Now, in 2016, I developed throat cancer. I'm not a smoker, but that's what happened to me. And it was at that point in my life where I decided that I wanted to try to get back to a community that I've been a part of, but have only tried to lead through example and not lead through actually getting my hands dirty like I did in Camp No Limits and make a difference. So I decided to leave the organization 2 years ago after a lot of soul searching to do what I'm doing now, to set up a nonprofit that I'm passionate about, named after my parents, called Joe and Marie Bolland's Helping Hands. You can go to Joe and Marie Bolland's helpinghands.org if you want to learn more about what they're doing. I do a lot of speaking. I think I talked about it last week. I was with a great organization where I gave the keynote to Adobe Population Health. Shout out to them. Fantastic people that work there. But I also started this podcast. I started this podcast because I wanted to tell the stories of not just people like me. Matter of fact, on this podcast, if you've listened to it, what I just talked about with me is probably the most I've talked about me. It's all about the community. And some things about the community that I find interesting is there are people that think I should wear a prosthetic, and there's people that think congenitals had it easier. My thing with all that is you do you. We have to be one community. We have to be one voice. If we're part of this limb loss community, how we got here doesn't matter, and how we go through life as a person with limb loss, that doesn't matter either. Wear a prosthetic, don't wear a prosthetic. I'm 100% for prosthetics. I just don't wear one. That's my decision. And as far as, like I said, the congenital versus medical or accident, I'd like to think I'm above that. We're all part of this community. And that's why I started the podcast, to tell the stories, but to tell the stories of people not just like me, to tell the stories of people that lost limbs in very traumatic fashion. But get them on the podcast and talk about how they navigated life through their journey, whether it be their prosthetic journey, their life journey, their employment journey, their relationship journey. There's a lot more to being in the limb loss community than being able to hike a mountain. There's life. We're people, just like anyone else. And that's why I started the podcast. That's why I left the organization. I didn't have to leave. I wasn't asked to leave. But I just wanted to do something to help others and really be more active in helping others, not just do it by example. Sometimes, though, you start a podcast or you do something like I'm doing here, and you wonder if I'm talking into an echo chamber. I can tell you from the stats, I know I'm not. I know people do listen to this. I know from the metrics, but what are people thinking? And I'm very fortunate over the last few months, my metrics have just shot through the roof. And it's different than web, where I can go in Google Analytics and find out exactly why and where I'm listed. I don't know what the genesis is of the dramatic uptick to the listeners I got, but I'm very appreciative to everyone that does listen to it. The reason why I bring that up, though, is, again, you wonder if as you go through and you're attempting something like this, is anybody listening, or is it impacting anyone? Well, 2 days ago, I got an unsolicited email that I'd like to read to you. I didn't ask the person if I can say their name, so I won't do that. But this is what this podcast means to me. So I'm going to read what this person took the time out of their day to write to me. Thank you, sir, for your podcast, your YouTube channel, and so much more. I became a BKA-LL, and that means below knee amputee left leg, due to a riding zero lawnmower accident on June 9th, 2024. I found your podcast while searching on Spotify for information and resources for amputees. We're Not Stumped was the third or fourth podcast that I opened and listened to. I instantly loved your message and the ability to speak to the masses about your own life, your own experiences, but really with the goal to help all levels of amputees in the nation and their families. I felt compelled to reach out and echo all amputees who have been touched, helped, or educated by your efforts, and say thank you, and wish you continued success in all your goals and ventures. Thank you for taking the time to write that. It means a lot to me. I hope I'm helping people. I'm going to continue to do what I think is right in the community, which may not align with all the organizations and coalitions and things. I can only use the experience that I have. Like I said, I'm pushing 60, so of over 60 years of living in this community to do what's right and try to help others. So again, thank you for that. Thank you for that email. It meant a lot to me. If anyone wants to be on this podcast to share your story, you have an open invitation. Come on in. It's tough. I'm not going to lie. It's not easy to talk about the difficult things that I know you've gone through, being a part of the limb loss community. But one thing I've noticed, at least it's a common thread to the people who have been on, they feel compelled to help however they can. And you can too. You can make a difference. Doesn't mean you have to start your own podcast. There's a lot that goes into this. I'm not going to lie. There's a lot that goes into this. But I'll give you the microphone and the platform on the We're Not Stumped podcast to tell your story and to help others. Because I think there's more people in this community that want to do just that. So if you want to come on the podcast, go to we'renotstumped.com and fill out the contact form, and I will get back to you. So that's the headlines for the week. Finishing it up with a bang, the 75th episode. This is the 75th episode. Thank you, everyone that listens. Thank you to all the guests, like I said. And thank you for taking the time to listen to this particular episode of the We're Not Stumped podcast. Everyone, have a great week.